American hurdle. And that takes us on to our last race of the meeting. Today, the Waterford Supreme Stayers Hurdle. Runners and riders for that from Peter Sullivan.
3 Irish here. 1 is Corduroy, ridden by Hugh Davis. 2, Crimson Embers, Blinkered, ridden by Stuart Shilston. 4, Hill of Slane, Andy Turnell. 5, Last Suspect, one of the Irish, ridden by Frank Berry. 7, Mayotte, Paul Richards. 8, Mendelita, who's Blinkered, ridden by John Frankham. 9, Mount Harvard, Steve Smith-Eccles. 10, Opening Night, Martin O'Halloran. 11, Orient Sunset, another of the Irish, ridden by Tom Morgan. 12, Silent Member, another of the Irish, ridden by Tommy Carberry. And 13, Pickle Tink, ridden by Mike Williams.
Well, this race brings together 2 old rivals, Crimson Embers and Hill of Slane. They've met a couple of times recently at Ascot. The last meeting was in the Hairy Mary handicap hurdle last month. Roadster being joined and challenged by Crimson Embers. Crimson Embers on the stand side leads from Roadster over in second. Swanee Prince is third now. Hill of Slane coming with a run on the far side. Behind those is Farmer and Principian as they run down towards the last. And it's the Fernbank hurdle winner, Crimson Embers, being challenged again by Roadster and Hill of Slane. Well, a slight technical hitch there. Apologies for that. Anyway, the outcome of that was a success for Crimson Embers. He was giving Hill of Slane £4 today. They meet at level weights. News of betting on our way to join Richard Pittman in the paddock.
Crimson Embers, the favourite, 15 to 8. That opened at 7 to 4, so it's drifted a little. Hill of Slane has gone out too, from 3 to 1 to 100 to 30. That's second favourite. Last Suspect 11 to 2. On 8 to 1, Mount Harvard, Orient Sunset, and Silent Member. Mayotte is 9 to 1, 50 to 1 bar these.
And the favourite deserves to be favourite on everything he's done so far. Crimson Embers, a horse by Cheval, probably Cheval's best son so far, out of Flaming View, owned by Mrs. Pam Smart and trained by Fulk Warren at Lambourne. Stuart Shilston rides this one. It is his ride, although Bill Smith is the first jockey to the Warwin stable. Stuart always rides this one. He's had 13 winners so far. Well, what a doer stayer this is. He's a homebred horse. He doesn't know the word of the meaning of the word defeat. He really does keep going. And last time out, despite being a stone worse off with Hill of Slane, he still held that horse. It was a great race to the post, and I'm sure they'll be locked together again today. Crimson Embers, a very doer stayer. He won't mind this ground, and I think you'll see him really plugging up that hill towards the finishing post. Just coming out onto the course itself, and I think the new Cheltenham, the new look Cheltenham, very much a success today. Silent Member is leading him out, number 12, this one by Whistling Top, trained by Pat Hughes and ridden by Tommy Carberry. They're in the orange colours. This is Tommy's quietly fancied one. Crimson Embers 2 to 1 favourite from 15 to 8, 7 to 2 bar. But Silent Member here, this is one that, although it hasn't been shouted by the Irish contingent, I know it is fancied a little bit. When he's right, he's quite a decent little horse, this. Being placed in this race behind Mount Rivers, then he had some training problems. There's Crimson Embers, blinkered as usual, but don't worry about the blinkers, perfectly genuine. He just has them to keep his mind on the job, keep him sharp. So this, a 3 miles, 1 furlong event. There's number 11, Orient Sunset, another of the Irish horses going away from us. 2 seasons ago, he was trained by Eddie O'Grady, and he was one of the best bumpers in Ireland. Desi Hughes had him start of this season, and he's certainly come on quite well. Number 11, Good Sort, with his tail tied up. Many of the Irish horses have their tails tied up. 13 is Pickled Tink, this one by Tickle Pink, owned and trained by Charmian Richards at Brickham, and Michael Williams in the saddle here. Well, we've seen Pickled Tink quite a few occasions so far this National Hunt season on BBC television. He's run some quite good races, but probably a little bit outclassed here today. There with the star, number 4, Hill of Slane, Andy Turnell just standing up in his stirrups, and that gives you some indication of how short he does actually ride. Andy almost riding, in fact not almost, riding as short as any flat jockey. Has tremendous balance. Hill of Slane, a real battler and as tough as old boots. He's had quite a few races, but is turned out by Alan Jarvis's trainer in exemplary fashion. He really was the pick of the paddock, in my opinion. He thrives on his racing when he's right, and he's a very decent horse. That's Hill of Slane, horse by the parson out of Palenka, owned by Mr. A.R. Turnbull and Mrs. Anne Jarvis in partnership. Number 7 is Mayotte. This is one of the 2 mares in the race today. Mayotte, a most improved animal this season, trained by Richard Holder at Bristol and ridden by Paul Richards. Well, Hill of Slane 7-2 from 100 to 30, but Mayotte, the one we're looking at now, her trainer thinks that she has an outstanding chance today. Already a winner over this course in heavy ground. She did finish behind Crimson Embers at Ascot, but her trainer's pretty confident that he'll turn the tables today. Mayotte, number 7. Number 9, the grey there, is Mount Harvard, running for the first time over this distance. Has won over 2.5 or 2.25, but never over this distance. Ran extremely well to be 3rd in the Sweps Gold Trophy at Newbury. Came with a rattling run there, just not quite getting up behind Donegal Prince and Ekbalko. Well, you've seen how well Ekbalko ran, and in fact Donegal Prince ran quite well in the champion hurdle. So Mount Harvard must have an exceptional chance here if he gets the trip. He's by High Top out of America and owned by Furlong Brothers. And Nicky Henderson, his trainer, on 16 winners so far, hoping to make it 17 here. Silent Member in the orange vest there. We saw him just briefly coming out from the course. Tommy Carberry on board and safe already with 1 winner to his credit. That really is a big boost to a jockey. When they can get 1 winner behind them here at Cheltenham, it spurs them on to greater things. Silent Member by Whistling Top out of Lady Angus. Pat Hughes, his trainer, was placed in this race behind Mount Rivers, had a few training problems, and he certainly can be fancied a bit here. Opening night there in the stripes, that's number 10, trained by John Jenkins down at Horsham. John, who's having a good season. He's had 18 winners so far, and Martin O'Halloran riding this one. It has started to come into form. Whether it's quite good enough, I'm not quite sure. But as they go to the start, we have a show betting for you.
The Crimson Embers 2-1, Hill of Slane 7-2, Last Suspect 11-2. On 8-1, we have 3 of them: Mount Harvard, Orient Sunset, and Silent Member. Mayotte 9-1, Corduroy 50-1, Mendelita 66-1, and 2 on 100-1. Opening night and Pickle Tink.
So the runners making their way to the start for the Waterford Crystal Stayers hurdle race. £13,800 at stake to the winner. Crimson Embers 9-4, favourite from 2-1, 7-2 bar. Making the way to the post, the well-known colours in this race. We haven't seen them yet, but we will pick them out for you. The well-known colours of Anne, Duchess of Westminster. She has a runner with Last Suspect, going by Above Suspicion and trained by Jim Draper. Frank Berry rides this one. The yellow colours there in the middle of that group of horses, and the black cap with the gold tassel. Well, Jim Draper will just tell you that Mount Harvard is 15-2 from 8s, but Jim Draper, the trainer of this one, to the left of the picture, is a big Tottenham fan, and he flew over for the FA Cup final last Saturday, but unfortunately didn't have a winner there. Well, perhaps he'll have one today. Last Suspect won the Leopardstown Chase in 1981. He stays forever and a day, and he won the longest chase in Ireland, a 3-mile 6-furlong event at Punchestown. An amazing thing about this horse is that he swishes his tail continuously. He's very genuine, but despite a sign like this, he really does put his best foot forward. But he reverts to hurdles today. This is something the Irish do far more often than English trainers. They don't mind running their horses over hurdles or over fences, and this one would be a very popular winner. Last Suspect, in fact, leading this group down. And you can just see behind them, above their heads, the enormous crowd here at Cheltenham. And they're just the crowd actually on the lawn and on the tarmac by the bookies. The stands are crammed full, and you can just listen now to that sloppy ground as the horses come past us. Last Suspect 6s from 11-2, going out half a point there. But that microphone picking up the conditions of the ground here today. It may look nice and green to you, but I can assure you it's pretty testing out there. So 3 miles, 1 furlong. It'll take a bit of getting. We must look for a horse that really loves the soft and has plenty of guts, because, mark my words, they'll get tired as they come up this hill. Most of the runners down at the start. Won last year this race by Daring Rose by 30 lengths. But of course, he didn't put his best foot forward and refused in the end in the champion hurdle. But we have a show betting for you.
Crimson Embers 9-4, Hill of Slane 7-2, Last Suspect 6s, Mount Harvard 15-2, Silent Member 8-1, two of them on 9-1, Orient Sunset and Mayotte, Corduroy 50s, Mendelita 66-1, and Opening Night and Pickle Tink on 100-1.
And what a beautiful setting Cheltenham is in, with Cleve Hill as the back cloth. One we haven't seen is Corduroy, the second from the right there. And this one trained by Bobby Beasley, who I was pleased to see here today at Cheltenham. Bobby had an amazingly good jockey, came back after a while in retirement to win the Cheltenham Gold Cup on Captain Christie. Well, he trains this one for Alan Westmarland and has won with him at Huntingdon, but the ground's all against Corduroy today. Alan Westmarland is entertaining friends here today and will be pleased to have a runner, but I'm afraid the ground very much against his horse. He's by Hotfoot out of Twill. I don't think we'll see him at the business end of the race, but it's good to see Bobby Beasley with a representative here as a trainer, because I'm sure he'll make it given the opportunities. He's now moved into Oriel Sinclair's old training yard down at Lewis and hopes to be taking out a flat licence very shortly. So those of you who made a few quid backing Bobby, I'm sure you'll support him now as a trainer. And there on the right of Corduroy is Mendelita, this one trained by Mick Haynes. This is also a mare, just two mares in the race, Mayotte being the other one. Mick Haynes hasn't had a winner yet, but he's a very astute trainer, and I should think it's no fault of his own that he's not scored so far. John Frankham rides this one on the 92 winners and leading the title race. He was hoping to be on the 100 mark when starting this National Hunt Festival, but he's not very far away. Remember, we've had about 6 blank weeks through snow earlier on in December and January, and it's an amazing thing that both he and Peter Scudamore are in the 90s at this stage of the season. Blinkard, this mare by King's Company out of Ermine Beauty, an American mare. Can't really see this one being Mick's first winner of the season. But we have a full show betting for you.
The Crimson Embers 9-4, Hill of Slane 7-2, Last Suspect 6-1, Mount Harvard 15-2, Silent Member the same price 15-2, Mayotte 8-1, Orient Sunset 9-1, and on 66-1 we have Corduroy and Mendelita, Opening Night 100-1, and Pickle Tink the same price 100-1.
3 miles and a furlong, and there'll be a few tired horses the second time up the hill. 13 there is Pickle Tink. This is a mare, in fact there are 3 mares, not 2 as I said earlier. Pickle Tink, who's been ridden a lot this year by Linda Sheedy, but she's not on board today. Michael Williams having the ride, and Charmian Richards from Brecon having run this one quite a few times in televised races. Got a tail tied up, plaited and then tied up because of the mud. A lot of the Irish horses have had this done to them. Very, very few of the English trainers bother to do it. Quite a nice sort, sure to pick up a little race, but this isn't a little race and it'll take some winning. Hill of Slane, I thought, looked exceptional in the paddock, and Crimson Embers, these two rivals, will sure to be battling it out again up the hill. They're both very dour stayers. Starter telling the jockeys to line up. They've got a long way in front of them. A lot of mishaps, but we hope no one to be hurt. Crimson Embers 9-4, Hill of Slane 7-2, Last Suspect 6-1, 15-2 bar, and we join Peter O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Richard. Coming in, 13 flights to be jumped, and opening night the first assure from Mendelita and Crimson Embers, Silent Member, and then Orient Sunset and Corduroy, Last Suspect and Hill of Slane, Mount Harvard, the back marker at the moment, Pickle Tink. Opening night from Mendelita, Silent Member and Crimson Embers, then Orient Sunset, Last Suspect, Corduroy, Hill of Slane, Mount Harvard, Mayotte and Pickle Tink. And quite a steady pace in this 3-mile, 1 furlong Waterford Crystal Stayers hurdle. Opening night from Silent Member and Crimson Embers and Mendelita. on Mendelita's outside, Last Suspect, then Orient Sunset, Hill of Slane, Corduroy, Mount Harvard, Mayotte, and finally Pickle Tink. Opening night, and Martin O'Halloran, whose partner Helmore Star ran such a good race in the Triumph Hurdle, although not in contention in the very closing stages. Coming down to the second. Opening night from Silent Member and Mendelita and Crimson Embers and Orient Sunset and Corduroy and Mayotte and Last Suspect on the outside, and then Mount Harvard and Hill of Slane, and finally Pickle Tink. The winner of that champion hurdle for auction, I should have said earlier, bred by Mrs. Paul Finnegan in Ireland. So as they run down to the third of the 13 flights in all. Opening night, Silent Member, Crimson Embers, Orient Sunset, Mendelita, Last Suspect, and Mount Harvard and Hill of Slane and Corduroy, and Mayotte and Pickle Tink. Still going a sensible pace in this very testing ground as they approach flight number 4. Opening night from Silent Member and Crimson Embers, Orient Sunset, Mendelita and Last Suspect, Corduroy and Hill of Slane and Mount Harvard and Mayotte and Pickle Tink. Breasting the rise on the first circuit, opening night from Silent Member, Crimson Embers and Orient Sunset, a little gap then to Mendelita. Length and a half behind Mendelita is Last Suspect, a gap of 2 then to Hill of Slane and Corduroy. Just behind them, Mount Harvard, Mayotte, and then Pickle Tink. Running downhill with a flight that will be the third last on the next circuit, number 5 this time. Opening night from Silent Member and Crimson Embers and Orient Sunset and Mendelita, Mount Harvard and Last Suspect and Hill of Slane, Corduroy, Mayotte and Pickle Tink. Over the 6th, opening night, Silent Member in very close contention, just ahead of Orient Sunset and Crimson Embers, Mount Harvard, Last Suspect, Hill of Slane, Mendelita, Corduroy, Mayotte and Pickle Tink. This will be the last on the next circuit. Opening night from Silent Member over the 7th, then Crimson Embers, Orient Sunset, Last Suspect, Mount Harvard, Hill of Slane, Mendelita, Corduroy, Mayotte and Pickle Tink, as they face another complete circuit. Opening night, Silent Member, Orient Sunset on the inside of the favourite Crimson Embers, Last Suspect just in behind them in the Arkle colours. Little gap then to Mount Harvard, Hill of Slane, Mendelita, Corduroy, Mayotte and Pickle Tink. Running down to the 8th, opening night, Silent Member, Crimson Embers, Last Suspect just behind Crimson Embers, on the inside Orient Sunset, then Mount Harvard, Mendelita, Hill of Slane, Mayotte, Corduroy and Pickle Tink. Silent Member and Tommy Carberry bidding for a double. Right upsides the leader now. Opening night. Last Suspect, a little reminder there. Needs a very strong gallop and got stamina as it's 40, and this probably hasn't suited it so well. But always a bit of a tail swisher, in fact. Over the 9th there, Silent Member from Orient Sunset, Crimson Embers. Then on the inside, opening night, then Mount Harvard, Last Suspect, Mayotte and Hill of Slane. As they race towards the 4th from home, Silent Member in the lead from Crimson Embers and Orient Sunset. Last Suspect on the outside of Mount Harvard. Then Mayotte and Hill of Slane making ground, and opening night is losing ground. Racing to the top of the hill, Silent Member from Crimson Embers now gone 2nd. Orient Sunset is 3rd. Then comes Mount Harvard 4. 5 is Hill of Slain, 6 is Last Suspect, and 7 is Mayotte, and then a long gap to Opening Night, Pickle Tink, and Corduroy and Mendelita, who are surely right out of it. As they run down now towards the third last, and it's Silent Member being pressed by Crimson Embers. Orient Sunset comes between the two. Mount Harvard is still very well in contention, so is Hill of Slain over on the far side. Then quite a gap to Mayotte and Last Suspect, and there it was Orient Sunset who landed in the lead from Crimson Embers. Then Silent Member trying to fight his way back. Then in fourth place is Mount Harvard as they race to the second last flight now. Orient Sunset in the lead, lands in the lead from Crimson Ember second, Mount Harvard third, Silent Member 4-5 Hill of Slain, rounding the home turn now. Orient Sunset trying to make it 4 for Ireland, from Crimson Embers for England now. In third place is Mount Harvard as they race towards the final flight. Orient Sunset in the lead, being pressed again now by Crimson Embers. It's Orient Sunset from Crimson Embers, there's very little between them now. Orient Sunset lands in the lead from Crimson Embers, and here comes Hill of Slain with a great challenge on the near side. Orient Sunset now from Crimson Embers, and Hill of Slain putting in a storming challenge on the near side. It's Crimson Embers who's taken it up now from Hill of Slain on the near side. It's Crimson Embers from Hill of Slain as they race up towards the line. Crimson Embers is going to win it at the line. Crimson Embers wins it. Hill of Slain is second. Third is Orient Sunset, and 4 Silent Member. 5 came Mount Harvard, and 6 Mayotte, and then Last Suspect, and behind them Pickle Tink and Opening Night. And so Crimson Embers beats Hill of Slain for the third successive occasion. First blood for England at the 1982 Cheltenham National Hunt Festival. First, number 2, Crimson Embers, owned by Mrs. S.W. Smart, trained by Fulk Warren and ridden by Stuart Shilston. Second, number 4, Hill of Slain, owned by Mr. A.R. Turnbull, trained by Alan Jarvis and ridden by Andy Turnell. Third, number 11, Orient Sunset, owned by Mr. Christopher McCarthy, trained by Desi Hughes, ridden by Tom Morgan. Fourth was number 12, Silent Member. Here's how they raced into the closing stages on the Waterford Crystal Stayers Hurdle as we review them with Richard Pittman.
On the home turn, it looked as if this was going to be a double for 18-year-old Tom Morgan and Desi Hughes, with Orient Sunset in the lead. He was being challenged now by the eventual winner, Crimson Embers. Stuart Shilston went to go up his inside, going round the last bend, but changed his mind. At the last, Orient Sunset, a good jump. He's never won over this trip, and I think that he's stayed quite well. It's 3 miles and a furlong, and here comes Andy Turnell on Hill of Slain to challenge his old rival, Crimson Embers. He looked at this point as if he was going to get up to win, but Stuart Shilston, hands and heels, rides this one out, just a tap to straighten his mount up as he goes to the line, and it's 3 times in a row that these 3 have met, and Crimson Embers has come out on top. I expect they'll try and dodge each other in future. But Stuart Shilston, this is a very good win for him. For a second jockey in a stable, they need a winner at a good meeting like this to keep them going. Hill of Slain second, Orient Sunset third.
So the first successful favourite of the meeting, and achieved by one of the English trainers with such a long and honourable association with this great festival, a Fulk Warwin. That's a hat-trick for this 7-year-old, Crimson Embers. And the official margin posted 3/4 of a length and 5 lengths. Crimson Embers, the 2-to-1 favourite. And the full starting prices as follows.
First, number 2, Crimson Embers, 2-to-1 favourite. Second, number 4, Hill of Slain, 7-2. And third, number 11, Orient Sunset, 9-1. Jackpot 402.
Well, we'll be back tomorrow with another 4 races on the second.